Hello and welcome to part 4 of my quick socket IO tutorial. In this part, we are going to learn about the most important aspect of the socket IO protocol, which is the ability for the client and the server to communicate. So we are going to learn how the client can send messages to the server, and likewise how the server can send messages to clients. Um, so let's begin by starting a server. Uh, so let's use the Gunicorn server for now. So let's start it with eventlet so that we get support for WebSocket. And now let's open app.py, which is our server, and then index.js, which is our client. So here we have our server and we have our client. Let's start by sending a message from the client to the server. So a really good place to send a first message, or I should say event. In Socket.io, we call them events. So a good place to send a first event will be in the connect event handler. At this point, we know that the connection has been established, so it is a really good place to send an event to the server. So the way to send an event is with the emit function that we get on the socket object, on the SIO object. And the emit function takes two arguments. The first argument is the event name. All events have a name. So far we've seen two events, the connect event and the disconnect event, which are predefined by Socket.io. Your application can define any number of custom events, and you can pick the names. You can use any naming conventions that you like for these names. So we have to pick a name for an event. So for this example, which is going to be very simple, I'm going to call it sum, and this is going to be an event that asks the server to sum two numbers. So the event name is going to be sum. The second argument is the data that you want the server to receive along with this event. So in most cases, the data is given as a JavaScript object, or on the Python side, it will be a dictionary. And the requirement is that whatever data that you exchange is compatible with JSON, because that's the format in which the data travels from client to server or vice versa. So let's make here an object. So say numbers, and then we can send an array with the two numbers that we want to sum. So this is a complete event that we are sending to the server. So we can save this, and then on the server side, we need to handle this event. So we do it exactly like we did with the connect and disconnect. So we create a decorated function. We call it with the name of the event. The first argument in the function is going to be the session ID of the client, and the second argument is going to be any data that the client sent with the event. So we call this data, and for the first test, let's just print SID and data. So this should reload the server, and it did. So now if we connect, we so we have the connected message, and then when the client received the connect event, it sent a new event on the same SID as before, and here is the data that we received, which we get as a dictionary in the Python side. So let's go ahead and implement this. So we can say result equals data numbers 0 plus data numbers 1. And for this first solution, we can now send an event back. So the server will now send an event to the client indicating what the result of the sum is. So it's actually fairly similar. The function is called the same. It's called emit. We need to pick an event name. So for this one, we can use some result, let's say. And here we pass the data as a dictionary. So result and then the value. Now, when you emit from the client to the server, you're always clear on who's the recipient. From the client, there's only ever one possible recipient, which is the server. When you emit from the server maintains multiple connections with multiple clients. So you have to specify to which client you want to address an event. So, and you do that using the to argument. And to identify the recipient of the event, you use their SID number, which conveniently we have received as an argument on the incoming event. So now we're saying that we want to send this to the same client that sent us the numbers. So now we have the client sending the numbers, and now we are replying back to the client with the result. So now we need to go once again to the client. We need to implement this sum result event in the client. So here we do it like this. And here we can once again use the safe approach of logging what we receive. So let's open the console here and refresh without the cache. And here you can see that we have received the result. So this is the basics of, as I said, the most important feature. This is how the client and the server communicate. So because there are some minor differences when you work with Asyncio, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to update the Asyncio server to work in the same way as this one. So we can actually copy this event and then open async app and paste it here. Oops, not there. There we go. And here this is going to be an async function, and when we called emit, we are going to use await because the emit function in the async server is a coroutine. So that's it. So this is the implementation for the async server. So we can save this, and now we can stop gunicorn and restart uvicorn instead, and make sure that, well, we already have it right there. Let's do another run, and once again we get the correct results. So this is the basics of how clients and server communicate. There are a few more variants and convenience features that we are going to see in subsequent parts of the series, but the basics you already have. The emit function is the way that the client and the server use to communicate.